right, so Chester, Sydney Lignar is here. Clinton, Abby Pearsall.
Yep.
She's the town planner. She is the appointee, the alternate for the town of Clinton. So welcome. Cromwell, Anthony Salvatore. Here. Deep River, Carol Doak Jones. I don't know if she did not RSVP, so I'm not sure if she's attending, but she's not here yet. Durham, Brendan Ray. Is he online? I don't see him. Okay. East Haddam, Irene Haynes.
Here.
East Hampton, David Cox.
Here.
Essex, Carrie Duquesne. The alternate, there she is, the alternate for Essex. Haddam, Robert McGarry. Is he here or is not online? Okay.
I think he was going to join virtually.
Okay, well, he hasn't joined yet. Killingworth, Eric Couture.
Hello.
Lyme, David Long. Don't see him yet. Middlefield, Jim Irish. He is here, I see him. All right, Middleton, Ben Florsheim. I do not see him. Old Line, Martha Shoemaker. Do not see her. Old Saybrook, Carl Fortuna.
Here.
Good morning. Portland, Ryan. I do not see Ryan Curley, so he's not. Westbrook, John Hall.
Good morning.
Good morning. And then for the MPO, Joe Comerford, Estuary Transit District.
Here.
And Darlene Briggs, Middlesex Chamber.
Good morning.
All right. So we also have a number of guests. We have Aaron. We have Julia McGrath. We have TJ Magnoli. We have Rachel Wright from the Connected DOT. Who else do we have? We have a guest from Civic Lift, Taylor Funk and Evan Dobos.
Dobos?
Hey, Dobos.
Yeah.
We also have our regional election advisor, Carol Conklin. I think we have, who else do we have? We have Nicole Velarde from Demis.
Allison Dwarbeck Jack. I'm sorry, I know I said that horribly. From Senior Resources.
Oh, welcome. We have Aaron McBride from Senator Murphy's office. I don't know if you would like to introduce yourself.
Bob McGarry's coming
This is
in.
McKenna. She's one of our interns
Oh,
for
well,
the semester, so she's
welcome.
going on to learn.
And I think, and then I'll just introduce staff. Sam Gold. We also have Marco Burns, Janice Odemeyer. We have our new financial assistant. So Laurie Kolar. She's joining us from what?
And I worked at Connecticut College previously.
Yeah, so she's joining us from Connecticut College, and she just started a couple weeks ago, so welcome, Lori.
Thank you.
She's assisting Paula. Great. Also of staff, we have Eliza Lopresti, Kevin Armstrong, Rob Harrimet, Marcos Gonzalez, and Megan Juflis, and Susie Beckman. I think I got everyone. So did I miss it? Is there anyone that I did not introduce?
I think you missed me, Sam.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, we have our friends over at VHB. Phil Goff is the project manager on our Airline Trail Farming Canal Connector study. I see David Lom has joined us from Lyme.
And Ben Florsheim and Bob McGarry.
Oh, and Bob McGarry and Ben Florsheim, welcome. So, all right, those are roll call and introductions.
Good job. Okay, I'm gonna apologize. I'm gonna be leaving probably sometime between 10:15, 10:30, and Dave's gonna take over.
I think he's apologizing because I'm taking over.
At any rate, first up is public speaking, and Carol Conklin, and Carol, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I want to say how much Carol has been of assistance to me anyways, with regards to early voting in the town hall. And did you see they somewhat relaxed the rule on the 75 feet? As long as you don't dilly-dally, you can move through the area.
What's dilly-dally?
You don't know dilly-dally?
Right.
I don't know if you got
I don't know what it is, but I know when I see it.
Yes, yes.
Sound familiar?
So they did hand out, so they went to a workshop, and did you get that?
Yes.
Is this,
Hello.
Yeah,
I just wondered if you got the information on the 75 feet rule.
Yes, I've been getting, this has just been a really changeable situation. But yes, the state does include me on their emails, and I seem to get most of them.
Okay. All right, at any rate, thank you, and what do you have for us this morning?
So it was the first day of early voting, and we're just getting in reports. And most towns, and I checked in with a lot of them yesterday, it was going smoothly, and numbers coming in from, towns like Clinton, Old Saybrook, about that size town, had probably in between 30 and 40 people come in. Coincidentally, a lot of them were evenly split between the parties, which is interesting too. And it's just been, the day went smoothly, but leading up to yesterday, to be perfectly honest, has been really difficult. It's been a really changeable situation. Every time there was a state call, something changed. On Sunday, the state sent out what they called their final early voting instruction manual. They sent it out by email, final meeting, because it had changed about 3 or 4 times. So they only had that as recent as Sunday. The good news is it is a very responsive group at the state. They want it. They want to be helpful. A lot of new people up there. But they did open up a Zoom link for every single day of early voting. And it's a live Zoom link that the registrars can use all day while they're doing it. You make sure their questions, there's plenty of people to answer questions and do that. So, I've really encouraged them to take advantage of that service. Don't guess if you have a situation. Don't, just get on Zoom with them and try to get it resolved. And within our county, we also had going on Chester, Deep River, Essex, a tri-town referendum. So they had double barrel there, and they actually, for small towns, had quite a bit of early voters because it was piggybacking the referendum. On April 4th is a very important follow-up state call, and that is to get feedback while the legislative session is still active, because if they're really finding some significant problems, they want to present them to the legislature to see if they can make some quick changes. So April 4th is important follow-up, and then also, and if you hear suggestions as CEOs or you have your own suggestions, make sure your registrars have those. And they have an upcoming conference in April. I do attend one of those days, and there's going to be a large follow-up breakout sessions there to also try to head off any problems in November. I think your biggest problem in November is just duration, the 14 days, if that can possibly be trimmed back. The duration is really difficult with staffing issues. But other than that, I think the process will go fairly smoothly.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have any questions for?
I do have something I want to add to a report, is that I did reach out to the Secretary of State. There is funding for Carol's position. It's $25,000 per COG. When they originally created this mandate, there was some funding, and they gave us funding a couple times, and then they stopped funding it. We continued the position, and we've been funding it out of our regional services grant. But $25,000 was appropriated and exists in the regional performance incentive account from last session. Well, the law says that we need to have a MOU with the Secretary of State by March 1st to be able to get that money. I reached out to the Secretary of State in February asking her, can we get something so we can get this money? Didn't hear. She said she's going to look into it. Never got back to us. So I went to the Government Administration Elections Committee and asked them to amend one of their bills to remove the March 1st MOU deadline. And the co-chairs were, they hadn't heard about this, but they were open to the idea, and I'm hopeful that that language will find its way in one of their bills. Because I don't see a reason why There needs to be a March 1st deadline to get the money to the COGs, especially considering this year is, there's gonna be a lot of work for Carol. And I'd like to have the money to be able to pay for more time, so.
Why don't you remove the Secretary of State?
Yeah.
We moved you up in Hartford, Anthony.
Yeah, so I have not heard from the Secretary of State, but I've asked Carol if she, in her interaction with Secretary of State, to remind her of this. And when we talked to OPM, Martin Heft, the OPM said really the only option right now is something in the statute to remove that March 1st deadline. Otherwise, we can't get the money until next year. Yeah, which is, not good. But anyway, that's, but I've been trying my hardest to get that money for Carol, so.
Okay, I'm sure you'll
Thank
stay
you,
on top.
thank you. And as usual, please reach out, email, cell phone with any questions. We're all plugging through this. So I do keep in touch with most of your registrars, and we're good about that exchange. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carol. Good job. I appreciate the assistance again.
No
Moving
problem.
on, Blumenthal's office,
Anyone?
no one.
I don't think she's here.
I don't.
Senator Murphy's.
Oh, we have Aaron McBride, yeah.
Okay.
Hi.
Aaron?
Sorry I couldn't be in person today. I have to be up in northeastern Connecticut right after this, so bit of a tough commute. But just a few updates I wanted to give you guys. We are going to be having a webinar on Monday, April 15th with the National Endowment for Humanities and Arts, and then also our CT partners in the arts and humanities. And that's going to be at 11:30 a.m. I'm planning on sending out the invitation to sign up this Friday, hopefully. And I do have all the different COGs across the state on it, and I will be sending it to all the CEOs across the state. And I do feel like we have a really good coverage of arts organizations, museums, theaters, all that on our invite list. And I know the CT Humanities and Arts are going to be helping us too. So hoping that kind of touches base in all the different groups that you guys have in your towns. And then also I just wanted to remind you guys of our congressionally directed spending deadline, which is April 14th, Sunday. So I'm going to be sending out a reminder, I'm thinking mid next week, just so it's kind of top on people's inbox. And then I'll send one the Friday before that weekend. If you have any questions, please reach out to myself, and I can connect you with our Director of Economic Development as well as our appropriations team in DC. And just as a reminder, any application that goes through our office is an application through Senator Blumenthal's office too. And we do work with the congressional delegation in general to try and pick as many projects as we can. And I know the House hasn't started yet, but we're operating on different kind of just different stuff happening in Congress, basically, which I'm sure Julia will have a great update for you guys. So I think that's all. Thank you.
Anyone have any questions? Representative Courtney?
Yeah, so, good morning. I have better news than I've had in a long time in that we have a fiscal year 24 budget and the whole thing passed. And now we can, operate without thinking, are we gonna shut down once a month? So, until October, so whatever, but we, unlike the Senate, it was made clear to us we would not get guidance on the community project funding process for fiscal year 25. They call it CPF in the House, it's CDS in the Senate, it's the same thing. Until after the fiscal year 24 passage, the House Appropriations Committee was, their staff was dedicated towards the negotiation process. And we are now waiting for them to just write the guidance and get it to us. That has put us on kind of a wacky timeline this year. But usually we are in tandem with the Senate, which makes it easier to coordinate projects and things. This year, we will be opening, it is possible, we don't know yet, it is possible we could be opening our application solicitation after the Senate has closed theirs. The only thing that this really causes a complication for is traditionally the House offices will provide letters of support for applications that we can't submit ourselves. In the House, we have a limited slots of applications that we can request funds for. Usually it's been 15. I don't anticipate that changing, but we'll have to see what appropriation says. So the way that we are going to handle that this year, because it gets a little too complicated if we start writing letters of support and then we get our own applications to our own offices for them. So what we're going to do is hold off on writing letters. Feel free to send a request in if you would like to, but we're going to wait until the Senate offices have submitted to their appropriations committee, and then they are going through that consideration process, and the letters will go to the appropriations committee in the spring, or later in the spring. So that seems to be the least insane way to handle that. We do have 2 RiverCOG projects that passed in fiscal year 24 budget. We have the Town of Essex River Road Infrastructure and the Roger Tory Peterson River Habitat and Riparian Zone Protection Restoration. Next steps for that should be that the agencies are reaching out directly to the recipient contacts with the fun part, which is like writing the application for it. The good thing is you already have the money, you just have to get into the system as a grantee. Other than that, I did send along a few more updates to Eliza, but things to highlight, that beginning this week, DEEP is allowing eligible challengers to register for the BEAD challenge process. That's the broadband program that came out of the IIJA. That is really important to make sure the mapping is right on. The eligible challengers are local governments and nonprofits as well as tribal governments. So if you need any assistance with that, we're happy to help, but also DEEP has been really helpful on that.
Are transit districts eligible?
No,
Okay.
no. That is, so it's municipalities, nonprofits that are considered, they call them like community anchor institutions, so like a community foundation or something like that. And then tribal governments. So, and then also broadband service providers, but you know, they have enough resources to handle that on their own.
Yeah, I was trying to connect, you know, DOT with the people at the state who are doing this because we want to get, you know, Wi-Fi on our buses and our stations.
Yeah, no, the best thing, so because this is happening now, the best thing I could say is maybe the municipalities and the transit districts get together
Could
and
apply on their behalf.
yeah, and assess, you know, use data that the transit districts have and then put it, unfortunately, that's probably the most efficient way to go about and make sure that there's data. Only other thing I want to highlight is a really cool new grant program that I found called the Active Transportation Infrastructure Investment Program. It's a competitive grant program that focuses on building networks of connected bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure improvements. It's new, it's in its first cycle. I know that's a big thing for, and MPOs and local governments can both be direct applicants. So that is, the deadline for that is June 17th, but there's also an informational webinar on April 9th, and I put a link to that in the document that I sent Eliza. And I think that's probably it on our end.
Well, Phil Goff, who's going to be speaking soon, has brought that out to our attention as
Oh,
well.
good, yeah.
So, yeah. But a question for you.
Yes.
So in the Senate guidance for earmarks, only the DOT can apply for transportation projects.
Yes.
And in the past, like let's say for the airline trail boardwalk in East Hampton, that was a town application.
Yeah.
Do you expect that the House's earmarks are going to be the same? That have to go through DOT?
We haven't gotten any indication that that's going to be the case. To be totally frank, we haven't really gotten much communication on like what to expect. In the past, with East Hampton and then Essex and a few other infrastructure like T&I focused projects, they have not necessarily had to already be on the STIP, but we did then work with CONDOT to get them on the STIP.
Yeah, because I think there's a little bit of a misunderstanding, because you can't be on the STEP unless you already have funding.
So, yeah, so when we went through this, they had to be like provisional inclusions that are marked as like FYI.
Okay.
And to be totally honest, I don't fully understand what the mechanisms to get from that to a actual inclusion, like what it means versus being an actual inclusion. That being said, we could receive guidance from appropriations this year that says the exact same thing. hope not, to be honest, but, we haven't seen what we're getting yet.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions? Thank you very much, very informative. Sam, do we have anyone else for public speaking?
Eversource. Okay, I think we're good.
Good, thank you very much. All right, our first presentation is Central Connecticut Loop Study Update, and Phil Goff,
Good morning.
morning.
Hi, good morning. I do have the ability to share my screen. Okay, great. Let me do that. Well, thank you can everyone see that screen now?
Yes, we can.
Yep, okay, great. Thanks for having me here today. Certainly has been a pleasure working with Sam and other RiverCOG staff on this project. And I'm here to give just a quick update on the effort as we're maybe about a third of the way through. Well, first of all, my name is Phil Goff, as you probably see and you've heard and you see on the agenda. I am a senior active transportation planner. I'm with the firm VHB. We have a Connecticut office locally in Wethersfield. I happen to be in Watertown, Massachusetts, and I do active transportation and trail, pedestrian, bike related planning and design projects throughout really all of New England. So I'm happy to be working on this project. So for the short presentation today, you can see it's only 15 slides. I just want to make sure everyone understands the study area, give you an idea of the analysis that we've done so far, again, in roughly this first third of the project, talk about some of the engagement we've done already, the goals that we've established for the project, the alternatives that we already are looking at and evaluating for potential recommendations, and then finish up with the schedule. So this is, there's kind of two names to this project. You may know of it as the Airline Trail to Farmington Canal Trail connector, and that certainly is part of it, but it is a piece of a broader 111-mile central Connecticut loop. This is an idea that's been out there for a number of years. It's been really kind of pushed by the Jonah Center and by others. And it's really the idea that you have a number of greenways and trails in the center of the state, and tying them together and branding them as the Central Connecticut Loop is really a great way to bring in just more use of the trail and more recreational and transportation use, and also bicycle tourists who might come in either through the East Coast Greenway or elsewhere and actually want to spend more time in central Connecticut. So the segment we're looking at, you see there circled in the southwest corner of the triangle-shaped loop. And the thing that's kind of interesting about this is there's a number of trail segments that have their own identity already, the Charter Oak Greenway, the Farmington Canal Trail, etc. We designed the logo for this project to be malleable so that it can be used as a branding tool to help promote not just the study that we're doing, which you see on the bottom left, that this is the ALT FCT study, but we designed the logo. You can see the central panel is able to be changed, and the title then can be changed too, so that this could be branded, whether it's whether the logo is used for studies in the future or it's branded with with signage. That's part of the trail. It's sort of a cool way to really establish the Central Connecticut Loop trail with its own identity that maybe is separate from others, but it is also part of a larger network. So I just wanted to let you know this. We worked on this very closely with Sam. Part of this was Sam's idea to sort of create this logo, and we have one that features obviously the dome in the Capital Region area, and the oak tree for the Charter Oak Greenway area, and the Aragoni Bridge, of course, for our segment. So the core study area, we are covering, on one hand, the end of the Airline Trail, the west end of the Airline Trail in Portland, to the Farmington Canal Trail in Cheshire. A lot of the routing in Meriden and Cheshire has been established, so we are incorporating that into our thinking. But the core of our study area really is Portland through Middletown and then connecting into Meriden. And you can see that there are a handful of trails already in Middletown, of course, really more at the north end, adjacent to the Mattabesset River that we are incorporating. And of course, in red is the Aragoni Bridge, which is really kind of pretty much the only way to cross the river. So we are incorporating that as well. We've begun in this first phase of the study as we're documenting and assessing existing conditions. We've done some analysis work, just high-level analysis work so far in the study area. We're looking at environmental issues, of course, including wetlands and critical habitat areas, floodplains, looking at the topography in the area to understand really what's possible. We want to understand the transit network. The lines you see there are the estuary in the top right, are all the bus routes in the estuary transit network. We have ridership for all those routes as well. Certainly, this is something that can help inform the routing of the trail. It's certainly good to have the multimodal connections, to have a trail passing by, adjacent to, or immediate vicinity of transit routes and bus stops to help build that multimodal connectivity. We've looked at crashes. That's a 5-year period. You see in the bottom left, all the little dots. The purple dots are all the motor vehicle crashes, but really emphasizing and trying to understand where there have been pedestrian and bike collisions, or collisions involving pedestrians and bikes with motor vehicles. You see that in the yellow and the red. Obviously, much of that is clustered on Main Street and on 217 in Middletown and elsewhere. So again, kind of helping to inform not only where we want to plan for the trail, but when we evaluate the various options and come up with a preferred alternative, safety and accommodating safety in locations of existing crashes is something that will add to the score for the prioritization method. And of course, looking at the traffic volume and speed of the roadway network nearby, some of the trail may be potentially on very low volume streets for very short segments, but more likely we might have some segments that are off-road but immediately adjacent to and within the right-of-way of, say, a state highway like Newfield Street, and we want to understand what those volumes and speeds are so we understand the context. The stakeholder public engagement that we've had so far and throughout the project, we do meet regularly with our project team, which does include Fitzgerald Holiday, by the way. I didn't mention that earlier. It's a BHB Fitzgerald Holiday, and we also have an economist sub-consultant on the team as well, who's looking at market conditions and other land use issues along the various corridors. So we've been meeting the team with RiverCOG staff bi-weekly. Bi-monthly, we were meeting with the study advisory committee that was set up by RiverCOG. The committee includes RiverCOG staff, of course, Senator Matt Lesser, staff from City of Middletown, from City of Meriden, Town of Portland, Cromwell. We have 2 or 3 DOT representatives, a DEEP representative, Estuary Transit, and advocates from the Jonas Center, from the East Coast Greenway Alliance, and the Airline Trail Committee. And I probably forgot 1 or 2 more. So it's been a great committee. We've met with them 3 times so far and every other month, and they're helping to guide some of the work that we're doing. Community events, we had one big one already, quite successful. We had about 90 people stop by our table on Main Street on December 9th. It was a holiday event sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce that's right adjacent to where our table is. We do have a routing workshop that's coming up in June, kind of midway through the project, and then a final meeting late fall, early winter this year. Board presentations, of course, this is the first of 3, so this is just an update for now, and in a handful of months you'll be hearing from me again, and then a few months after that, again, probably when we're really at the draft report with the final recommendations. We do have in our scope a final presentation to Connecticut DOT that will be early next year, and we do have a series of stakeholder meetings that we've had, throughout the last couple of months. We've met with state agency staff, with a larger group of Middletown and Town of Portland staff as well. As I mentioned, we have a couple representatives on the committee, but we wanted to meet with larger groups. We've met with DEEP a couple times now, including folks from the land acquisition and management staff to understand the state-owned properties and how that may impact our routing. Trail advocates we've met with, and then later this week we are meeting with staff from the DOT's Office of Rail, and I'll tell you about why in just a second. We've established study goals for the project. We have this, or for the study, I should say, not the project, for the study. We have these 8 categories: off-road, traffic safety, environment, security, cost, connectivity, economic impact, equity. These are all the goals, not just goals to help kind of guide us as we're moving through the planning work, but these goals later on will morph into evaluation criteria from which we will then evaluate the various trail alternatives, score them and prioritize them, and come up with a preferred alternative. So, we've worked, we've presented these to the public at that pop-up event to get comments. We've presented this at a couple of the advisory committee meetings and have gotten comments, and we've kind of wordsmithed these to a point where there's a high level of comfort with the wording here to help guide our work and to evaluate the options later. So speaking of the options, we are far enough along that we have established a handful of route alternatives. Most of the variations are in Middletown. As you can see on the Portland side, from right to left, the green trail is the airline trail that ends about here. So for the most part, following the old rail alignment with, to get around some properties, we have some variations here. We have a couple of options that we're looking at, both on-road and off-road in the center of Portland in order to connect to the Oregonian Bridge, and that is clearly the way to get over the river. As you know, there are existing sidewalks on each side. They're a little on the narrow side, not ideal, but likely to be the recommended route for the the Central Connecticut Loop Trail. When we get to the Middletown side, we do have a variety of options. The one in the light yellow is really more of a supplemental on-road option. There's not too much opportunity for widening bike lanes, putting in a path along this corridor that includes Country Club Road and some others passing into Meriden. So we have that as supplemental, but really kind of the core of what we're looking at in terms of an off-road connection, and that is what the goal is ultimately, is an off-road connection, at least for 95 to 100% of the route through the study area. So that's kind of the focus in these areas, and connecting to this existing path system that you see in the north part of the city, and then connecting in red with the preferred alternative for a trail connection past Giuffrudo Park and into the state land, and then passing into Middletown there. Zooming in a little closer, this gives you a little better idea of the options and kind of the core part of Middletown. This is color coded by really the trail typology that we would include. So, blue, you can see your bike lanes. So in some places, we will be looking at bike lanes as an alternative. The green or the off-road trails, orange are more of a shared roadway environment. So we're trying to minimize those where possible. And one of the critical elements and why we have a pretty important meeting later this week, or actually tomorrow, with DOT's Office of Rail, is there's a state-owned rail corridor that does run just north of downtown. adjacent to the Remington Rand building, and then continuing crossing the RiverCOG River, and then further south to La Rosa Lane. That is a state-owned corridor. It is still used by freight rail only on occasion. It's not heavy use, and there's no passenger rail there. But it is a corridor we're looking at, not necessarily to close it down and to put a trail on top of the existing rail bed. Perhaps in the long term, that is an option, but what we're really looking at and what we want to discuss with Connecticut DOT tomorrow is the opportunity potentially along the rail line. You can see in more detail from Johnson Street, that rail corridor crossing the river and heading up to the north, gives you some idea. What we're really looking at here, again, is not so much to replace the rail with a trail, but the opportunity to put a trail adjacent to it. And Connecticut DOT, on some occasions, have allowed that. You know, they tend to not, the Office of Rail at least is not so enthused oftentimes about having a trail adjacent to an active rail line because of security issues, because of safety issues, but it is allowed, and there are certain standards we would need to meet in terms of offsets and security fences if we do need to be close, potentially within 10 feet of an active train, but in some cases, like further north, you know, up in this area, there's certainly more land where we have the opportunity to put the trail a little further from the tracks, but you know, in the wetland areas adjacent to the river, it is tight, so we would be looking at being as close as possible. So this is what we'll be discussing. This is pretty critical element if you go back to the path. You know, mostly we want to connect up in this direction, and this is the most direct route to go over the Argonne Bridge and then cut through these parts of the city to get to a path on Route 3 is possible, but would likely involve some shared roadway, you know, low volume, lower speed roadway, but still not the ideal condition. We want to stick with the off-road where possible. So that's what the important meeting tomorrow is all about. And just to finish up, as I said, we're about a third of the way through. This is an 18-month project. Here we are in March. We are completing our first deliverable that we'll be getting to Sam and Robert in the next day or two. And we will be meeting again with the advisory committee in 3 or 4 weeks, and then preparing for the public workshop that we do intend to have at some point in June, date and location to be determined.
Thank you,
That's
Phil.
the presentation. I'm happy to take questions.
Yeah, 1 second. Sam, do you have anything?
No, just things are moving along well, and it's a complicated puzzle to get to Middletown and create a connection, but we're happy with the work that's going forward.
Anyone have any questions for Phil or Sam?
Right.
Thank you very much. Very detailed. We appreciate it.
See you in a few months. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil.
Moving on to the next presentation, Civic Lift. Who's handling that?
Yeah. So.
Oh, thank you.
How you doing? I'm going to.
Your name again is?
My name is Evan Dobis, and I'm my colleague Taylor up there in the middle. He's with Civic Lift as well. So thanks so much for the invite. We're happy to be presenting. If I can just, I'm going to share my screen real quick here. You might not have to change that, right? Because you're just going to come through here.
There,
I think, right? Awesome. Okay. Perfect. Okay, so yeah, I'm excited to be presenting today because we've been on a campaign the past few months of working with a lot of regional organizations and individual towns on deploying our platform, which is called Community Hub. And essentially what this is technology for community, municipal, and regional leaders to assist with economic and cultural initiatives. So we like to refer to this as digital infrastructure. And what we're proposing is that we find community groups and municipalities such as yourselves to work with to deploy our infrastructure. And with it in place, we jumpstart many initiatives that you might be running, such as economic development, community engagement initiatives, a lot of support for local businesses, and of course, quality of life for the residents and the visitors that come here. And to understand what I mean by digital infrastructure, is everyone here familiar with the real estate industry's MLS? Great. Okay, so I like to bring that up because we're all familiar with it, and what they've done is essentially they've built an infrastructure that essentially is the backbone of the entire real estate industry, right? And what they're doing is they're aggregating all the housing data from an area. And then they take this housing data and they provide it directly to their stakeholders. So in their version of stakeholders, it is realtors, agencies, and platforms like Zillow.com. So obviously that works really well for them. So what our thought was, let's do the exact same thing, but instead of housing data, of course, we're dealing with community and culture data. And so we aggregate all of this content, and then we provide it to our versions of stakeholders, which would be you. It would be community leaders, tourism initiatives, and municipal initiatives. And so now we're providing this data and giving infrastructure the same way agencies and realtors have it for their industry. And so the data we're talking about, we've identified as there's four main drivers of community and culture. They are events, places, stories, and jobs. And as I said, together, these are really what drive economic development, the aspect of community. And so we're making them as accessible to our stakeholders, you, as housing data is to realtors. So let's take a second and imagine that this map represents our area here. North Faketon, South Faketon, Exampleville. Yeah. I've used this for other presentations. I'll come clean. And each one of these circles represents the cultural data. They could be events that are happening that come and go. They could be businesses, events that they're having. And it's the sheer volume and nature of the ever-changing nature of this content that's so hard to get a hold of and to keep a grasp on. And so the end result of that is residents might miss out on fun events they could have gone to. People aren't as engaged with their local businesses as they could be. So that's, that can inhibit economic growth for the area and overall quality of life, right? So, and your area probably has existing initiatives already that, you might have some cultural websites, municipal websites. There could be, business and economic development initiatives. But the problem is, without some infrastructure in place that ties these all together, there's going to be duplicated efforts and fragmentation between these initiatives, and that could result in a less than ideal experience because we're all very cognizant of where our efforts are going. But with Civic Lift in place, what it's doing is it takes all these inefficiencies out of the way. It's constantly aggregating and collecting all of this cultural data, and it's automatically running in the background. So with Civic Lift doing the heavy lifting, which is why we named it Civic Lift, it can now feed and power these individual initiatives from a centralized location. And it's not one size fits all either. You can see the culture and tourism, they subscribe to a certain kind of data, but the business and economic development initiatives would subscribe to another kind of data. So we can slice and dice it in any way they want to fit their specific initiative. Does this make sense so far? Any questions before we keep going? Okay, great. So we went over how it feels for the initiatives to receive this content, but let's also imagine what it's like for the people who are submitting the content, the event hosts, the businesses that we all represent. Right now, if they have an event, what do they have to do? They have to submit it to their website. They probably put it on 2 or 3 social media channels. They might have to also submit it to their local newspaper. And now we're asking them to do many steps. And they want to do that because they want it to be seen everywhere. But once Civic Lift is in place, they make one submission to the platform, and our software is what distributes it. Just like if you're selling your house, your real estate agent might list it on the MLS, and now the whole entire industry knows that that house is available. And so what's great is that we get much more exposure for each event, and then we can aggregate for the event submitter, a much better viewership of their content. And we do this in a nice way where we display how much their content's being seen. And so, to recap, actually, before I go on to this slide, we should also think of the other side of it, the people who are looking for the events, the residents and the people who come visit the area, because now they have to go to 20 different places to find out about what's happening in the community. But now it doesn't even matter where they go because it's all related, it's all tied in together, so we don't care where the content is found, we just care that it gets found easily. And so it can be better utilized by residents and visitors. So to recap what we're doing, our software is aggregating cultural data, it's formalizing it, and then it distributes it to all your unique individual initiatives here in the area. And we do this on an ongoing basis and in near real time. So we've been showing this to, as I said, many organizations throughout the state, and we're really happy to announce that we are partnered with all 8 of Connecticut's DRSOs, Designated Regional Service Organizations. Essentially, there's 8 of them in the state, and they're the arts councils, the arts alliances. And so all 8 of them we've have agreements with, and so far for 4 of them we've already launched. And so we have these 4 more to go, but they'll all be done by the end of the month. So we're really ramping up for spring. The whole idea is get this launched and in place for spring so that we can hit the ground running with the season for tourism. But I'll bring special attention here, and I want to emphasize the Shoreline Arts Alliance. This is one of the DRSOs. Since we've been working with them, and they're our most recent launch, and what's great is this area covers all 17 of the RiverCOG towns. So we already are hitting the ground running, and this is a screenshot of the site that we've launched for them. And I can actually go to show you this website, but I just wanted to point this out and say the digital infrastructure that I'm talking about is already here in some capacity. So already we're going to be hitting the ground running. So let me, I'm going to go to the live website. Perfect. Okay. So this is the live website that we launched for them. And again, this is just the events aspect of this, but you can see that any community member can go through and browse to see some events that are happening nearby. And if they find one that they like the sound of, they can simply click on it and get to a full detail page about it. And so here, people can share it on social media, they can add it to their own personal calendar and get all the details, especially the most important stuff, when, where, and how much. And then all of this content, long image, was submitted by the user themselves. And so they get to write about what it is they're doing. And then, we have a really nice engaging calendar. So anybody can go through. And then you see here that we have the submit an event button. And what this does is it triggers a really easy online form that anybody can fill out. It's free to submit content, it's free to have an account, it's free to promote your stuff. And then we give each event host basically a free marketing platform to promote what it is they're doing. And while they fill out this form in one location, as I said, it's a network effect. So it goes to this website, but it might also go to your town website, for example, if the calendar is installed on your site as well. So it's a very cooperative aspect of it. And so we are currently, we've also delivered for, nice. We also recently delivered for a site called Discover Litchfield Hills, which is a regional website. And I just wanted to show you this because if you see here, we have, I got my screen sharing thing in the way. I'm trying to drive on the big screen. Sorry, there we go. So you see here we have an events calendar, and so you could see that there's events coming from all towns in the whole area. We got some from Kent here, some from Litchfield, and so that's the regional website that's used for tourism and marketing. But if we go to the town of Litchfield's website, and we go to their events calendar, if I can get my thing out of the way. You will also see some of those events also listed here. Litchfield Restaurant Week is right here. So what's great is they went through the process of submitting this event, and now you can see that it's being distributed. And we're also tied in with local news organizations. We're tied in with their local arts council. So one submission and it goes to numerous different websites, and now Litchfield Restaurant Week can go off with a lot more exposure right out of the bat.
And Evan, if I might add, I think it's important to point out the network effect that is extremely powerful with these calendars, because the last time you checked, how many views were in total was the Discover Litchfield Hills calendar and all those events receiving on a monthly basis? Do you remember?
Yeah, the past 30 days, so this is just a testament to what happens when there's a distributed network of the events. The past 30 days, we've had 1.4 million views of events just happening in the area, and that's over the course of 30 days. So these kinds of metrics are super meaningful because, you know, we're able to show this to each individual who has submitted their content and show them that it's working and show them that they're getting exposure. And, you know, just having this data at our fingertips can be really meaningful with economic development efforts. So we even make these dashboards and provide extra information for economic developers.
So the question I have is,
Yeah.
how does the subscription work? And it was a question my chair is like, how do you make your money?
Yeah. Yeah, so we make our money by we can deploy a localized version of Civic Lift for individual towns, and then the towns pay a subscription fee for that. And and that's pretty much the case across the board, and it depends a lot on which services you want. So obviously I'm focusing mostly on events because that's where we have our strongest hold, especially after launching for the Shoreline Arts Alliance. So we can cater exactly to your specific needs. And as I said, one town might be very different from another in terms of what it is they're trying to promote. So we can change the feed depending on what their actual initiatives are. And from that point forward, always have this centralized feed that they can get. So we'll work with individual towns on creating a subscription for their specific sites.
Have you ever done like a regional subscription?
Yes, we have done that as well. Yeah, and actually Discover Litchfield Hills was halfway funded through the effort through the Northwest Hills Council of Governments, RiverCOG. So they provided us a base level funding, and then we were able to go to the individual towns, and we're saying at a discount now because they've provided the base level that we can deploy for you individually. So we have, I think, at least 8 of their towns has their own local version while also being on Discover Litchfield Hills. So they got the hyper-local audience, but at the same time, they're exposing their content to the regional audience. And so that's a much different marketing campaign.
And how do you interact with the tourism districts?
Yeah, so tourism, we create a feed for them based on, you know, tourism-related events. You know, maybe we're not showing the Chamber of Commerce events in that case. Maybe, you know, it's more just the tourism-related events. And if they have a separate initiative running, like one of the ones we did was explorefarmington.com. Totally different from the municipal website of Farmington, but they had a specific initiative that they wanted to focus on. So we would work with that as well. We also integrate with existing websites. So we can put our feed onto an existing tourism website. It's just really like, tell us what kind of data you want. We'll provide the feed of data. And then we do all the user management ourselves. So if people have questions submitting content, they don't have to ask you or anybody there. They can chat with us through our support system, and we're the ones helping them.
Okay.
Anyone have any questions?
And I don't know if there's anything else.
Yeah, no. I guess my what's next for this discussion is, you know, we're looking to meet with towns, municipalities, economic developers who are looking to maybe have their own specific version. If there's initiatives focused specifically on, you know, strategies that involve promoting the events that are happening and then promoting the small businesses that are in town. If those are active strategies, we'd love to book a demo with you and show you exactly how this could look for your town specifically, and how easy it is for us to deploy and keep it plug and play for the municipality from that point forward. So happy to be contacted here, and of course Taylor as well.
And maybe you should talk to Sam and maybe, like the other COG, something we could look at also.
So, yeah, the potential for regional subsidy to sort of get this up and go, yeah.
That'd be wonderful. That would be wonderful, and as I said, something we were able to pull off before, and we've got some great references for you if you'd like to speak with someone who's experienced it.
Anyone have any questions? Thank you very much, very informative.
My pleasure, thank you.
Anyone else, Sam?
Nope, next is Rob.
Rob?
Oh, actually, the minutes and then Rob. Yes, sir. You can come over to the table. Yes, under MPO business approval, minutes, and then Rob.
I'm sorry, Rob.
Oh, no problem.
Well, it's still MPO business, and I take a motion to approve the minutes from February 28th.
So,
Motion second, Irene. Any corrections? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Rob's up next. We have some amendments. So without objection, we'll do 1 through 5 as one unit, 6 separate, and then 7 through 10 as another unit, if everyone's all right with that. Okay, Rob, 1 through 5, please.
All right, sure. That's our first SIP amendment. They all have the same project number. This is a Middletown project, number 82327. Uses STP Anywhere funds and is for the installation of a pedestrian bridge over Route 9. This is currently a concept plan in the city's riverfront redevelopment plan. The basic concept right now is for a basically a wide pedestrian bridge from downtown to the riverfront. With pedestrian amenities, things such as benches and plantings and things like that. This is for all these first 5 or for all the various phases of the project. The first is the preliminary design phase in 2024 for almost $600,000. The next is the right-of-way phase in FYI, which is beyond the scope of the current TIP for $100,000. The next is the final design phase, which is FYI of $3.7 million. Then we have an AC entry and an AC conversion for construction, again in the FYI phase for almost $35 million. I don't know if you have any questions.
Questions for Rob?
So the bridge is $35 million?
Currently right now, I mean, it hasn't even been designed, so.
Wow.
That's gonna go up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is just in concept now. I mean, obviously preliminary design hasn't even been begun yet,
That
so.
was for a bridge though. Regular,
Yeah.
for vehicles and stuff.
This is for pedestrian, yeah.
It's gonna be.
Oh, yeah, she has both on
We have
her.
both on ours.
Where,
It's gonna be
any questions for Rob besides the amount? All right, I'll take a motion to approve 1 through 5, please.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Mayor.
Really?
Thank you very much.
Okay, next item is 6. That's to expand the truck parking at the rest area on I-91.
Yep, this is another Middletown project. It's project number 82328, again using STP Anywhere funds to expand truck parking in the Middletown rest area on 91 northbound. A couple years ago, State DOT did a statewide freight study, and truck parking was a major concern. There was a spin-off study just addressing truck parking. Again, there's very little truck parking across the state for trucks for overnight sleeping. Often you see them on the sides of the road, places like that, which cause safety issues for both the trucks and the vehicles. If you're familiar with this rest area at all, if you're driving up 91 North, you get off the ramp, the road forks, there's truck parking to the left. With the way station, there's car parking to the right. In the middle, there's a median with the restrooms. What this is looking at is putting another 11 truck parking stalls to the north of the rest area. to the north of the restrooms. It's like in where the current median is. Let's see here, this, most of the design's already been done, using state funds, and this is a construction phase in 2024 for $2.7 million.
Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Motion second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion?
We are equally excited about this project.
I really didn't think you were gonna be mayor. All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on, 7 through 10, Rob?
Sure, this is a Westbrook project. Project number is 154-130. This uses Transportation Alternatives Program New Haven funding. This is for sidewalk improvements along Route 1 in Westbrook. Let's see here. This is, if you're in the Westbrook Village in the center of town, the current sidewalks go eastbound from the village to the school and the library. This project extends the sidewalks basically from that area down to Old Forge Road, which is roughly about 1,000 yards or so. So that's what that is. There's the four phases. There's a preliminary design phase in 2024 for $200,000, a right-of-way phase in FYI for $100,000, final design phase of $200,000, and a construction phase of $1.5 million.
Thanks, Rob. John, you got anything?
Oh, I'm very familiar with it. That's what we're doing. We're doing a number of sidewalk projects, so.
Can I get a motion, please, to approve?
So moved.
John, second, Irene. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, John.
Thank you.
Does it take you across the Singing Bridge?
No, that's another project that's coming up here.
Okay. Rob, 25 draft tip presentation?
Yeah, I'll be quick. First, I'll just talk about the draft tip a little bit. The MPO board and interested parties was basically notified that the draft tip's out for public comment, began March 15th and will run through April 15th. The links from the website were on there and sent out. We do have a public information meeting this evening. This is a brief presentation I was going to do then, but I was going to kind of tailor it for this board since it's a very high-level presentation and you're familiar with most of it. Basically, the draft, MPOs are required to have a tip. They're typically updated every 2 years, and what the tip basically is just a list of projects where federal funding can be allocated. Basically, when we do our tip amendments, what that is pretty much just a row in a spreadsheet. So I was going to kind of focus on the chapters of the tip because you probably don't actually look at the tip document very often. It's just the row in the spreadsheets like we had just discussed. So the first chapter is an introduction. It basically just talks about the towns in the region and the requirements of the tip itself. The second area is the resolutions. There's a resolution adopting the tip, a resolution adopting the air quality conformity determination, and there will be another resolution, which is the self-certification, which is in the appendix. The next section is the federal program descriptions. As we just talked, these were, what we have, STP Anywhere funds, TAP New Haven funds. So this, the federal program description has all the federal programs that are in our tip, not all the federal programs in general, because that would be quite long. And it's basically a few paragraphs on each of these programs, describing what those programs are. So you would know what STP A is and STP Hartford, STP New Haven, things like that. The next is the definition section. This is basically the columns on the top of the spreadsheet. When you look at the spreadsheet, it's more than just what's on here. It usually gets sent out with it. It's a column that'll say region, and there'll be various numbers. It basically shows what regions are what numbers and what districts are what numbers, things like that. Same thing with air quality conformity. There's various numbers depending on if it's modeled, if it's not modeled, what program it's exempt under, things like that. So that's what the definition section is. The financial plan, let's see here, it talks about the various sections of the plan. There's a regional, multi-regional, and statewide. It's broken out by federal highway, federal transit, and by year. Also in the financial plan, it is broken out by funding program over year. The next section is the list of projects to be funded, which is the TIP spreadsheet, as you're familiar with in terms of the amendments being individual rows of that spreadsheet. In English proficiency populations, basically in terms of the regional project investment, implementation, and operational factors. After that, we go to the appendix. The project listing by year is just a resorted version of the projects of list to be funded by year. The regional project maps is visualize where the various regional projects are. So there's a map, with the location of the project as well as the cost and project number, things like that. Performance-based planning and programming, that began in 2016 as part of federal regulations. As this board knows, we are pretty much annually adopting safety regulations, but there's a whole host of other ones, asset management, congestion management, things like that we've always adopted. This is how those targets and performance measures relate to the TIP. Next, we have the air quality conformity analysis. The Clean Air Act amendments of 1990 require MTPs and TIPs to not create new violations to the National Ambient Air Quality Standards. So DOT models all the programs and plans and projects in them statewide for ozone and particulate matter. The tables are in the TIP. There are no current new violations, so that's good. The next section is basically a disposition of comments and the certification. So that's basically what's in the actual text of the TIP. I know because you're mostly just familiar with the actual spreadsheet itself. This actually has the finances. There's a 1.56 million of regional projects, 315 million in multi-regional, and I want to say it was, I can't see it under there, 3.6 or so of statewide projects. So it's about 850 million in spending for the years between 25 and 28. Again, this is for the public meeting, but I mean, there's bridge and culvert replacements, roadway, bike ped, transportation projects, for statewide projects. I mean, many of them you see as TIP amendments throughout the year, sign supports, bus replacements, capital and operating for bus, and we already talked about the EJ. This is the appendices, which we had basically already discussed. In addition to our draft TIP, we also have, we piggyback the state STIP, which is the Statewide Transportation Improvement Program, which is basically just a compilation of all the regional TIPs. So that's really about all I have in the TIP. I don't know if you have any questions.
Questions?
When does the public comment period run till?
It's 30 days from March 15th to April 15th.
Okay.
So I would hope we would, I'll bring it to the board for the April meeting. And we do have until June to get it over to the state and the feds, so we do have time. If something comes up and we push it back to May, that wouldn't be a problem.
Okay. Anyone else? Other transportation, Rob?
Yep, I had a few things. They're mostly all just reminder dates. What did I have? The Active Transportation Microgrant Program. We're in our very first quarter. We received 2 applications, Camp Ingersoll YMCA and Cromwell PD. I will get those over to DOT by the end of the week, as the quarter will be ending. This is the first time, this is a new program, so I don't know how long it's going to take for DOT to get us the funding to then get to the towns, probably 6-7 weeks, I'm guessing, I'm not sure. There's currently about $500,000 in the program. There's a maximum of $5,000 right now, and the program will run until the funds are expended. at which time maybe the DOT will bond for additional funding. So I will send out a reminder next quarter for the next round being open. The projects are first come, first served, so they don't have to be prioritized by the MPO board or anything like that. Just as they come in, they will move out. Next is FTA section 5310. Applications are due April 10th. This year it is for both traditional and non-traditional applications. Last year it was just non-traditional, which is operating, operating traditional is capital for basically lift-equipped vehicles. So those will be due soon. Transportation Alternatives Program, those applications are due May 10th. Right now, there's probably a good chance we would receive a project in the Hartford TMA, as we did not in the last round. We probably wouldn't in the New Haven TMA, as we just did this round, which was the sidewalks in Westbrook we just talked about. But this is also kind of example of how long these projects take. I mean, we haven't even started really designing the Westbrook project. These were solicited in 2019 for the last round. 3 projects get submitted to DOT. When the federal funding comes out, it's not a lump sum, it's annual. So typically, you know, the #1 ranking project will take the first 2 years, and #2 ranking project second 2 years, third the final 2 years. So which is why it's been 6 years for this Westbrook project to even get into the tip. Now that it's in the tip, it'll likely take a year of design, year right away, year of construction. So I mean, you're looking at potentially 9 years out from submitting your application to getting your project done. So just something to be aware of, when you're considering soliciting for this round. The final one is the municipal grant program. And that's the program apportioned to towns for, it's actually a really long title. It's the state matching grant program for
13.
Yeah, statewide. ED. Typically, River Valley Transit's the coordinating entity for most of the towns. I think 1 or 2 towns apply through us, through the COG. They're taken on an ongoing basis, but officially, I mean, the date's May 15th to get those into us. I think that's about all I had for other right now.
Thanks, Rob.
Sure.
Any questions for Rob? Thank you very much. Joe, update on the transit district?
Yeah, so we are working towards May 28th for our start date for all of our fixed route service expansion, which is pretty significant. Which includes Sundays, we talked about that. Also to put into place our micro transit grants, or at least 2 of the 3. The third one is expansion of the Middletown one, which only runs during the semester, so that gives us a little time for that one. And then we also start Park Connect service that day, our annual Park Connect service with our brand new trolley that we just got a couple weeks ago. So, yeah, so May 28th is going to be a big service adjustment for us. Lots of hiring, lots of getting ready for that. Our schedules are just about done to start putting out to the public. And we also just found out last week that this STIP includes in it expansion of our service between Old Saybrook and Middletown on Saturdays. So that'll be our first time running that route on Saturdays. That's, I think, planned for either 25 or fiscal 25 or 26. We're not clear on that yet. So a little more expansion. Then we also are set this week to hopefully select a vendor for the statewide pilot of open fare payment technology. So that's real exciting. It's a very short grant. It's a SMART grant, the first SMART grants I guess ever. So there's a lot of figuring things out there. DOT's the lead on it, but we are the pilot for the whole state. And I don't know if we've talked about it a lot here. I'll very quickly say, because it's really exciting and interesting. If anybody's been to New York lately and ridden the subways or even buses, you can just tap your credit card now. You don't even have to buy a ticket anymore. That's what we're piloting in the state of Connecticut. So we will have readers on every single bus. And so we'll be selecting them this week. And it will allow you to just tap your card on the bus. And it's not just a fare payment, but it basically makes your credit card a ticket now. So for 2 hours, you'll be able to continually tap it on other buses and you won't get charged again. It will remember your credit card number and it gives you a 2-hour pass. And we're doing it on us and the Meriden CT transit system because we have a lot of connections there. So we're also testing not just how it works within our system, but how it works with another system, and with the hopeful end goal in the phase 2 of the SMART grant to have a statewide program where you'll be able to tap between any bus in Connecticut and move between buses seamlessly with your credit card. And it will have fare capping, so if you hit $3.50 in a day, you'll get a day pass automatically. So you tap twice today and you get charged $3.50, the rest of the day your taps are free. If you tap up to, I think we're doing $60-something, the state's fare, monthly pass fare, you will, within a 30-day period, you will be upgraded to a 30-day pass automatically. So it's, yeah, we're really excited. It will make it a lot easier for people. You don't have to go buy a pass. You don't have to carry cash. You just tap your credit card. And so that should be starting September-ish is the goal. And it's a 6-month pilot, but if successful, you know, even though it's a pilot grant, the state will own the equipment and we'll be able to keep them on buses and keep it operating if it's working well. And then they'll have the opportunity to go for stage 2 to push out statewide. So part of this, in the end, is to come up with a statewide implementation plan should they get funded for round 2. So that's a really exciting grant pilot that we're involved in, that we were selected for the state. And we're also doing, right now, we're participating in a state pilot, or one of 3 districts in the state participating in a pilot for training CDL drivers because of the statewide, well, nationwide shortage of qualified CDL drivers. We've been asking DOT for a long time to help us because we keep saying, like, you guys are best positioned to help us get new drivers in, better than every district independently doing this. And so they have taken the lead. Through the highway department, they've developed a training program. They've been using it to train, DOT maintenance crew guys to do the highway side. And we are the first of the districts they're opening it up to pilot it for transit districts. So we have 2 people. We start, for a CDL driver, we start at 2080 down here and 20 in Middletown.
Irene volunteers.
Yeah,
Sign me up.
she's looking.
I
There you
want
go.
that trolley.
She wants to try the trolley.
We got our first 2 people in it, so we're, it's about a 4-week course. So,
Then you can drive the plow in town, you can drive everything.
You wanna wait until the session's
That's right.
over?
I think I'll wait till the session's over.
but yeah, we're hoping it gets us the ability to get some people in. And of course, we're watching the legislative session, particularly concerned about Public Act 2240, which holds our funding flat after this year. And of course, paying attention to any further attempts to make us change our fleet makeup. Because, there's both a Public Act and a executive order that prevent us from buying any more diesel buses. We can no longer buy another diesel bus. We bought some at the end of last year. So we're good until the replacements of our 2015s, which we'd be ordering them in 2026 for arrival in 2027. We've received the draft of what it's going to take to make our building able to charge electric vehicles. And we have our first 2 pilot ones coming in. They're going to charge across the street because we can't put them in our facility. It's going to be about $18 million project to make our building able to charge electric vehicles.
$18 million
Just fix the
to
building.
renovate your building, to run electric buses. Am I missing anything yet?
That aren't
Well.
really filled with people yet.
And today, based on today's technology, the best case scenario is our routes require 2 buses to make the whole day. And we have 5 routes, just in Middletown division only.
And
That
how long
are 3
can
buses.
the electric bus run for?
Yeah, it's
right?
maybe 200 miles,
Huh?
but most of them are not gonna get even 200 miles. And a lot of it is also time. So yeah, we have such a long span of service that,
Why not hybrids? At least start out slow.
Go easy, yeah.
well, the state did buy some hybrids at the end of the year. because they're concerned too. But of course, the other thing is, yeah, they did.
They didn't exempt themselves, cause they usually do.
No, it actually, the law applies to the state only, is what the state's determined. But the governor's executive order applies to us as well. So they can't, while we are permitted to buy buses, they cannot provide us any funding to do so.
So the thing is like unless the towns pay,
Our
meet the
20%.
non-federal match, 20% of the cost, he can't buy a diesel bus.
So legally, I could buy them. I just can't use state money, which the state gives us 20% of all of our capital purchases and matches the federal. So I can't get any state money to buy them. So I'm not prohibited from buying them, but the state's prohibited from giving me money. And so, we will have to increase the fleet size in order to meet our current requirements. The 18 million doesn't include the cost, to expand the facility to accommodate the larger fleet. So it's actually even more in that. And then on top of it, that's not in the STIP. So that's not even in to be done by 2028, but I get my first buses in 2027. And the next ones are in 2028.
18 million
So,
revenue.
and it's not in the STIP, so we're not in there to get done.
Or a really big extension.
Well,
It'll probably be an
but
amendment
that
that I
also
vote,
assumes
but-
there's electrical capacity.
Yeah.
And, he may be able to.
They've done the study. The study believes we can get it. I mean, it's about 2 megawatts needed for our facility.
The grid good?
Yeah.
It's gonna cost 18 million to upgrade.
Yeah, they've looked at that, so the grid is, that's just the Middletown facility, that's right, that's not the shoreline. The shoreline's a whole nother story. It probably won't be as bad, because we don't have a facility to renovate there, we're gonna be building, so we'll build it with that, so it'll be incorporated in. A lot of the challenges is that the current facility needs a lot of modification, not just for the electrical charging, but for the fire suppression side of things. Because, because you wanna be able to charge them inside, that extends battery life and extends range. But the way our building was designed, our ceilings are too high to meet the fire suppression requirements. And so we actually are at to install a whole new drop ceiling and upgrade all the HVAC and all this stuff. So it's a lot.
I wouldn't wanna be working next to them.
It's a lot of work just to get whereas if you were building a brand new building, it wouldn't be nearly as costly. And then but also a generator, because obviously we're gonna have to be able to at least have some charging capability for emergencies. That, we can't not run buses for a week because of a major storm.
Electricity?
Right.
And one thing I'll just add is that, and I use this in testimony on House Bill 5004, is that there was an interesting article in the New York Times last week about how moving over to electric faster than we can build clean energy generation will actually support the construction of a lot more fossil fuel power plants. Because if you need the electricity and there's no other source, your effort to move over to electric heat pumps or electric vehicles before you have a way of generating electricity cleanly, it could be counterproductive. And I put that actually in my testimony, my revised testimony for 5004. Just that, it's all well intentioned, but you need generation, you need energy storage, and you need transmission. You can't just have mandating switching over to electricity. It needs to be
Right, and that's our start, because then our other side, half our fleet's gas, and there is no gas alternative today. There's not. So we're very concerned that something comes after the gas side, and there's just the little bit that's out there, it's a very light duty version. And again, we've done the analysis on that through DOT's consultant, and we have several routes on the shoreline where we use a lot of gas vehicles that would take 5 buses to replace 1. So, the technology is just not there especially on the gas side for RD. They're not focused on that segment yet.
Yet you're mandated.
Not yet on the gas. That's what we're all very carefully watching, make sure there's no mandate that comes down on gas now, because there's just not that technology yet. The technology is much more mature on the diesel side, even though it's relatively not mature, but compared to diesel, gas side, yes. And that's largely because those are 12-year buses. A diesel version costs over $600,000. So the upcharge isn't as bad as when you're talking a 4-year bus on the gas side, and a $100,000 bus. So the focus has always been on electrifying the diesel side because it made more sense. And so there's just not been that investment on the light duty side. So we're just concerned about any effort that might come there.
Big
Yeah.
question is the trolley electric?
No, it's diesel. It's a diesel trolley. We do have our first 2 electric buses coming probably late July, early August. So, which we are excited about because that will be a great test for us, and that's what we want to just first learn before we're totally electric.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you, Joe.
Anything else for Joe?
Oh.
Joe, what parts in the region are the bus, is the trolley gonna go to?
So they got to replace the old Clinton trolley. So it goes to Hammonasset.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, connects Clinton to Hammonasset.
That's why I want the job.
With the tapping of the credit card, how do they communicate with the person to tell them that, yes, your ticket's been upgraded to, a full day pass or?
That's a good question. So we don't have the final vendor yet, so I'm not sure. There's a whole screen on the bus and it turns green, it says you're good. I think it's gonna be displayed there, but I think that depends on the vendor. So we'll learn more. DOT's consultant is reviewing all the proposals and is supposed to have us a recommendation tomorrow.
Some, like the earlier systems, it just, you don't find out until you get your credit card statement.
Well, that's what I'm thinking,
Yeah.
like,
I don't know if it is really gonna tell you or if it just is automatically doing it in the background.
Okay. Anything else for Joe? No, thank you, Joe. We'll move on to RiverCOG business. Megan, where are you?
Right there.
Megan, you're gonna go ahead and talk about WestCOG's grant application partnerships.
Yep, so good morning, everybody. It is application season for the implementation grants for the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant Program. They are due April 1st if you want funding. So based on our previous meeting, we are part of the Capital Region COG Coalition application for removing the barriers to installing solar on housing authority properties. Since that time, we have received 2 more requests to join applications because we're very popular. So WestCOG is putting together, well, I don't know, first maybe I should ask, we want to take them separately. What we're looking for is authorization to join in one or both of these applications. So maybe I start with the WestCOG one and then move to the other. So for the WestCOG application, it's a multi-COG coalition application. They're calling it climate-friendly land use regulations. And what they're trying to do is develop model policies and standards that municipalities can use to support more sustainable development patterns. And then also work with municipalities that want to adopt or implement these model regulations with technical support and assistance in moving through that process. 8 COGs, if we joined, would be part of this coalition application.
Okay. How does that dovetail with any of the other ones that we have that we're already participating in?
No overlap.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Any questions for Megan on at least the WestCOG application? Yeah, why don't we go ahead and do a motion to approve joining the WestCOG grant application related to land.
So moved. Second.
Eliza,
Is there any further discussion on a motion to join the WestCOG grant application? Questions? I'll call for the motion then. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Those opposed? Any abstentions? That motion passes. Thank you. Megan, the other partnerships.
Great. So the next one is from the state of Connecticut. They aren't asking us to be a partner per se. They're looking for a letter of support. 1, to get them additional points on their application, and 2, to allow us to be subrecipients of funding if they do win any of these grants. So they have 4 that they're putting in. So I'll just kind of run through them. The first is a medium and heavy-duty zero-emissions vehicle incentive program, which would expand funding for light-duty zero-emission vehicles. The second is replacing diesel-powered idling truck-mounted attenuators in state transportation construction work. The third is expanding the state's program to remove health and safety barriers for weatherization. So that's things like asbestos, mold, knob and tube wiring, leaking roofs. And then the fourth is providing funding for food waste diversion programs to result in 20% inversion of food waste from landfills. The commitment that they're asking for from us is continued coordination and engagement on the development and implementation of measures. And they specified akin to what we've already been doing. The state has been joining our multi-COG meetings, every 2 weeks that we have. Lately, it's been every week. So just continuing that level of coordination and engagement, responding to DEEP's request for information on community engagement and participant support. So supporting the engagement process, providing information on engagement and who to engage in your communities, and then attending one or more public meetings per year, which may include providing input on design or performance measures, providing feedback with ideas, contacts, and engagement to meet Justice 40 and environmental justice goals, and then coordinating to make sure that the funding that the state would receive doesn't overlap with any of our other projects that we're working on. So, the federal government's been very clear they're not funding the same measures in the same places. So just making sure that we are coordinating with the state to make sure that if they win any of these grants, anything that we're working on doesn't overlap with the things that they're working on.
Okay, so the ask here is for a letter of support.
Yep.
That commits us to all those things you just talked about.
Exactly.
All right, I would take a motion to that effect. So a motion to approve a letter of support for the state's grant application.
So moved. I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion, questions?
Are you okay with all this work?
Yeah.
I mean, is it additional than what you're already doing? You said you're kind of doing this already, but I just figured I'd check, like.
It depends on if they actually win the grant, but I also have my fellow staff. I think we can.
Yeah, no.
That's good. It sounds like you guys take on a lot.
Yeah, it's
for punishment.
that was our discussion on our call yesterday. It's like, it ends up being more than we expect, but these are at this point it's applications, so we're going to support the state application and WestCOG. We're not going to be primary on it. We hope that it's not going to require too much of our time, but by doing these statewide applications, we think we're more competitive.
Yeah. And I will add that in the Capital Region application, they have put in additional funding requests for staff time to support work on these projects, and WestCOG will as well. And if we do go as a subrecipient for any state funding, we'll also be asking for that.
Yeah.
Just fair check.
Okay. Any other questions, discussion? Otherwise, I'll call for the motion, and those in favor of the motion to approve the letter, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That motion passes. Thank you, Megan. Susie, you're up. We're going to talk about a new gateway member.
Oh, yes. So I was wondering which item I was on. So Gateway, the RiverCOG does appoint a representative and an alternate for the 4 towns in the north area of the Gateway Zone and for the 4 towns in the south area of the Gateway Zone. The representative for the south 4 towns has resigned her position. We do not have an alternate to elevate. So we need a new member to join the Gateway Commission that needs to be appointed by this board. And the chair, Suzanne Thompson of the Gateway Commission, recommends Clayton Penniman, who is a professor, and he has taught and done a lot of research in aquatic biology and environmental protection at CCSU. He taught for 30 years. He has recently retired and has time to join the board and share his knowledge with us in that capacity. So the recommendation from the chair of the Gateway Commission is for this board to approve the appointment of Dr. Clayton Penniman as the South RiverCOG rep to the Gateway Commission.
Okay, thank you. I'll take a motion to that effect then.
Motion to approve. Second.
Is there any question or discussion on that item? Otherwise, I'll call for a motion. Those in favor of approving the appointment, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposition to that? Say nay. Any abstentions? That motion passes. Thank you, Susie.
Thank you.
Stay there, Susie and Sam. I guess you're up on economic development.
So I'll first share the good news about the governor. After 7 months, we finally got our letter of support for our application for Federal Economic Development District. And I sent a thank you over to DCD's new commissioner and the staff, thanking them for all their efforts, because I think they were really pushing for us with the governor's office. We don't understand what the holdup was, but we're thankful we can move on to the next part of this application. And Susie, why don't you give a briefing on our Economic Development Committee?
The new Regional Economic Development Committee has met twice. We're just getting organized and we're following the same process, really, that the Regional Housing Committee has followed in order to get up and running. And we have had participation. We've got great participation from the towns, and we appreciate the support for that and are really looking forward to what we'll be able to do regionally for economic development to support our towns individually and as a whole.
And that committee is going to become is a central component in the application for Federal Economic Development District. So having that up and running, having bylaws and relationship is going to be important for the application.
Okay. Any other comments on that? Otherwise, we'll move on to household hazardous waste. Jan?
Yes. Good morning. Our hazardous waste program is starting in April, here, April 20th in Clinton. And we'll be moving on all through October. The program doesn't cost $18 million, no. We had a little hiccup with paper shredding and we're moving forward with that. We've got that all organized, so we're going forward with hazardous waste and recycling. Just wanted to say that Sam and I are going to be in conversation with Sam King from Blue Earth to talk about a decentralized option for composting. So that could be interesting. And that's pretty much my house waste update.
I'm going to ask you something you weren't prepared to answer, but what's the status of the agreement? I know Middletown was looking that over.
Working on that, yes. I actually, there was an insurance form that we're filling out, and I'm getting information back to him for that.
And the Corporation Council had comments on the interlocal agreement. So I think what we may bring back to all the towns is if there's any substantial changes that Middletown requires, we'll come back to you. If it's not substantial, I don't know if we necessarily need to. We will tell you what they are, but yeah. Right.
I know one of the suggestions was EPA, any new kind of legislation for EPA to include that. Other than that, I didn't see any other.
Speaking of that, the bill for there to be extended producer responsibility for batteries seems to move forward out of committee. So that could be something where battery recycling is funded. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions related to hazardous waste? Otherwise, regional agriculture.
Agriculture, yeah. Continue to meet monthly for agriculture. The towns that still need representatives are Cromwell, Essex, Middlefield, and Old Lyme. So we're doing pretty good on getting representatives from all the towns, but still need those four. And I just wanted to say that the compost bin rain barrel sale is in progress so that people can go online to order these items. It goes until, let's see, May 5th. So we need Civic Lift to get this done. And that's it.
Okay, thank you, Janice. Anything else on that? Otherwise, digital documentation. Kevin?
So starting the beginning of April, we're going to be getting that program going. We're working with our vendor to implement Laserfiche. You all approved us to obtain 12 licenses as well as a chunk of funding for customization. Currently Cromwell, Portland, Middlefield, and Essex are all at the front of the line because they reached out to me first. I'm really just throwing out the information again. Contact me, let me know that you're interested. It could be one department, it could be your whole town hall. The point of this is to try to get those documents that are paper sitting in filing cabinets, digital and accessible to your constituents. So if you do have interest in that, we do have a limited number of licenses. We didn't buy the whole farm. We bought just a small chunk to kind of pilot this. So when they're used up, they're used up. But we did also, I just want to reiterate that we did put in funding for that customization. So now's your chance to get any specific form needs or any specific items. I'm going to be going through my own personal training so that I can be the trainer of the trainees. So as soon as we get the main chart of accounts set up and we make sure that we have our permissions set up with MetroCOG, I'd like to start getting things rolling because it's really going to boil down to your staff being able to actually get the information in there, because I'm more than happy to come out and meet with your staff to kind of run them through how the program works and answer any questions or take any questions back. But the actual work of scanning and getting the documents digitized will be up to you guys. So, any questions? Okay.
Thank you, Kevin. RiverCOG, or rather, the Land Trust update, Margo.
Yes, hi, good morning, everyone. Let's see, I want to tell you about the award of the Melvin Woody Lower Connecticut River Conservation Award to Torrance Downs of our agency. And just to tell you a little bit about the award and the application submittal from the town of Old Saybrook for Torrance. As the most ardent supporter of the Land Trust Exchange since its inception and the guiding voice to the transformation and growth of the Lower Connecticut Land Trust from a conservation tool of the Lower Connecticut River Gateway Conservation Zone to a broader geography that encompasses the 17 communities of the RiverCOG region, the annual award is named in Melvin Woody's honor. Melvin has been a member of the Connecticut River Gateway Commission since 1973 and served as its chair for many years. The commission is responsible for protecting over 1,000 acres within the Gateway Conservation Zone and supported many environmental studies and restoration projects. And from the town of Old Saybrook, Torrance dedicated his career to promoting and protecting the beauty, health, and significance of the Lower Connecticut River region through his work with Connecticut Deep, the Lower Connecticut River Council of Governments, and other affiliations. His efforts have resulted in the preservation of many acres of open space and will continue to do so through plans and regulations that he has helped develop. Torrance's many roles have directly benefited Old Saybrook. Torrance has always made himself available to lend his expertise to his community and has been involved in countless efforts to preserve and enhance the natural and historic qualities of not just Old Saybrook, but the greater region. As a longtime resident who raised his family in Old Saybrook, Torrance and the Downs crew have volunteered in many community service projects. We're grateful for his many contributions. And I just want to say, the submittal was signed by every chair of every land use commission in the town of Old Saybrook, as well as the Carl. And so it was a really great application. But we also had a total of 4 outstanding applications for our conservation award this year. So we're really proud of that. And that's all that I have to learn. Okay, and then just for the Connecticut River Hydrilla project, we just found out through Senator Blumenthal's office that the Army Corps has received funding for fiscal year 24. So that means that the program will definitely continue through the summer and do our pilot projects, and then be able to start on more projects further north in the river, because we have to solve the problem, hopefully, in the future. We need to start going in the north and come south to solve it. And then we have our public meetings, tentatively, but almost written in stone, May 29th at Goodwin University, June 4th in Middletown at Town Hall, and in East Haddam on June 27th. And I think they're all going to be at 7 p.m., but I'll know more after our meeting this afternoon.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else? Otherwise, Susan.
Oh, yes. Sorry, for all of you who are part of Region 2, The MOAs and the resolutions or the amendment to the resolutions have gone out to your towns. Please fill them out and get them back as soon as possible. If your town is in a different region, you should be receiving those if you haven't already. Please also fill them out and get them back. And I'm going to, Nicole's online here. I'm gonna defer to her to give you any other updates.
Thanks.
Good morning, everybody. Just a couple of brief updates. The Connecticut Conference of Municipalities Emergency Management Symposium is coming up. It will be Tuesday, April 23rd at Camp Net in Niantic. So registration for that is currently open. You can access that on the CCM website. We are putting together a migrant response planning workshop for the end of April. That will be Thursday, April 25th. Official announcement for that, I hope to send out by the end of this week. So you're welcome to register for that. And what we expect that to be is just some of the towns and cities that have been involved in the planning initiative for the past 12 to 18 months will be just sharing their best practices and lessons learned for those towns that are still developing or identifying who should be involved in the planning process for migrant response planning. Susie covered the 2023 HSGP MOAs, and just to elaborate on that a little bit, we are trying to streamline that process. So when you receive my email, this is to the CEOs. There are two different options, whether you are a new CEO or the incumbent. So if you're a new CEO, please submit an MOA and a town resolution. If you're the incumbent, you can have your town clerk just type your name and either stamp it or get it notarized and then submit that. We don't need a new resolution if you are the incumbent. A reminder to please submit your proxy letters if you haven't already for the REPT meetings. The next meeting is scheduled for Friday, May 17th. That will be in a hybrid setting, so a Teams meeting will be sent out and the physical location will be in Bethany. We did start the REPT bylaw update. The committee met a couple of weeks ago for our first meeting. It went very well. The big issue to address with our bylaw update is our inability to get a quorum. So discussion as to the makeup of the REPT and the quorum did ensue. Somebody on the committee did bring up that perhaps the CEOs are not the best option to serve on the REPT, and this person felt that the emergency management directors were better prepared to serve in that role on the REPT. So we want to solicit more feedback on that from the CEOs. This is in Region 2. So if you're in Region 3 or Region 4, you can disregard this, but I will be sending out a survey to the Region 2 CEOs to get your input on that. So please answer that in a timely fashion. That will be sent out sometime next week. And just to be clear, this does not mean that the CEOs would be removed if that change did occur. You would still have a vote in some fashion on the REPT, and of course are always welcome to the meetings. And we could, you know, if that's the road we decide to go down, we have options to discuss maybe hosting CEO specific briefs either once or twice a year. But the main part of that is to please keep an eye on your inbox for that survey and complete it when you receive it. And then a final reminder that if your town participates in the EMPG program, the Emergency Management Performance Grant, applications for the open years are due March 31st. So in just a couple of days. Applications will not be accepted after this date. So if your town wants that money, please make sure you turn in those applications by the end of this weekend. And that's all, unless there's any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Anything for either one of those individuals? No? Otherwise, we'll move on to office space. Sam?
Yeah, so RiverCOG's lease for this office space is up at the end of July. And I've started lease negotiations with our landlord to figure out what he would want for a renewal. At the same time, we've been looking at LoopNet and we've been working with a real estate agent looking at other options. This afternoon, I'm looking at some office space in Middletown. Our landlord came in and his starting offer was a 50% increase in rent.
Wow.
We were expecting an increase because we've had a very low rent for a very long time, for a number of years, below what we got initially in 2012 when we moved here. We're at like around $9 a square foot, which is cheap. But even so, went back to our lease and consulted with our attorney with my interpretation of the lease. He had put in one of the addendums to the lease that there's a default holdover rent of a 25% increase. So that 25% increase, if we hold over and we go month to month, is half 50%. So that needs to be the ceiling negotiations. And I think, and if we are to stay, we have to come to something that's more reasonable than a 50% increase. But I think I've discussed this with the executive committee, and they've given me some guidance on what they're comfortable with. But it needs to be something more in line with CPI and something more gradual. And it can't, and obviously can't be more than 25% because we might as well just go month to month. What we've heard from a real estate agent is that this is a very soft market for office space. And although people are listing at $16 and $17 a square foot, the landlords aren't getting that. They're negotiating and agreeing to much lower rents, but they're listing it at a higher rent because they don't want to publicly undercut themselves. So we're gonna continue looking and do what's best. Of course, as with any major contract, I need board approval for that. So I can play you as the bad guys in these negotiations. So you're very helpful. I'm the good cop, you're the bad cop, and I'm sure, and like I've been through these negotiations with our landlord. If we choose to stay, I'm sure we'll get something reasonable out of them. So.
Okay. Any questions for Sam regarding that? Sam, otherwise, I have nothing on behalf of Tony, so.
Yeah, so let me just get up my financial report.
Do you need our approval to move forward on that, or?
No, what I'll do is, because I don't, because I need your approval, the soonest would be April. I could give them a soft commitment, but I'd rather have that as sort of a part of my negotiating strategy, so. And in the past, it's been the chair who's signed, so. And let's see, so financial report, I had it up a second ago, come on, open. I'm trying to think of other news other parts of my report.
Legislation?
Don't struggle, I mean, if you've got nothing to tell us else, that's okay.
Come on, my computer is opening everything but the financial report. Oh, here it is, okay. So as of February 29th, the council has completed 8 months of fiscal year 24, and overall spending is within the parameters of our adopted $2.9 million budget. We have exceeded a couple of line items towards the retirement party, and we've also exceeded a line. We're very close to exhausting our budget for books, dues, subscriptions, and conferences and seminars. But any overages for the party and overages for anything for subscriptions or dues will be covered by being under on other line items. As of the end of February, our STIF account had $1,794,315, and our Liberty checking account balance was $48,897. So we're in good financial shape. And why don't I also go into legislative update? Kevin, if you could bring up the spreadsheet. I think it's on Chrome. It may not be there. Okay.
No, we find it.
We do. So we are maintaining an online legislation bill tracker website for the bills that we've been submitting. I've submitted testimony on 30-something bills and attended a few hearings. I'm so thankful for Zoom because you log in at 10, you speak at 7 p.m. and it's just and then you listen all day to everyone's crazy. Very impassioned testimony about a whole diverse array of topics. One thing that I got while sitting here was a legislative alert. The bill to restore funding to Shoreline East to restore service seems to be stalled in appropriations committee, and the woman that's heading the Shoreline East Riders activist group is asking people to contact Kathy Austin and Tony Walker, who are the co-chairs of the appropriations. I can send out an email. And last week I went to I visited Julia and her commission, which is the Connecticut Public Transportation Council. It's, yes, you're now council. And they had a hearing in New London about Shoreline East, and I spoke. in favor of restoring funding. Their chair, Jim Gilday, has been very supportive of restoring Shoreline East and has gone farther, I think, than anyone to sort of point out how Shoreline East has been singled out by the administration for cuts that no other rail branch was singled out for, or performance metrics that weren't applied to anyone else. The governor singled out Shoreline East for cuts, and that's what happened.
That's the #1 legislative priority for the council for this session.
Yeah, no, and so I testified to both the transportation and appropriations on this, and Kathy Austin did tell us that she was supportive of this, but it's not moving, so we're concerned. And I'll just very quickly just highlight some bills that I think are interesting. So the Shoreline East. As I mentioned, the battery program is moved forward. There's a joint favorable for that. This is interesting, the joint favorable on an act authorizing the online publication of legal notices by municipalities. I think that's really big. And the Fenwick case, where there's no newspaper with circulation in Fenwick, and so how do you do a legal notice if there's no newspaper? So I think we're finally getting to a point where like towns will be able to post legal notices on their websites, saving you a lot of money. There's also a bill moving forward. There's a governor's bill and act facilitating the expansion of shared municipal services. I think there's some good language in there. The union and the union issues I think are very complicated, and I'm not going to pretend to understand them, but I think some of the joint favorable language I think makes things possibly more complicated. Let's see.
There's something about incentivizing for funding as to whether or not towns are going to get funded if they
Yeah.
do
That's in the new joint favorable. Yeah, that
so
wasn't in the original.
So it's messy.
Yeah, I felt uncomfortable writing testimony in that bill just because I didn't understand the labor ramifications in there, and it's gotten a little bit more complicated. And that's in the JFS language. That wasn't the original language about prioritizing. There's also, I think, an interesting bill that's moving forward. JFS is act concerning temporary shelter units for persons experiencing homelessness located in real property owned by religious organizations. This was these pods that were erected in the parking lot of a church in New Haven. New Haven Planning and Zoning has since approved them, and this bill was introduced. The new language will limit them to really to the cities, and so none of our towns would be, you have to have a population of 50,000 or more. But it was a very interesting debate at our regional planning committee about the needs of homeless people who are living outside in the winter versus are these pods the solution that we need, or could we do better for housing people experiencing homelessness? So, and then I submitted a very detailed testimony on Senate Bill 419, which was an act limiting property tax increases. This was similarly based on the New York State property tax cap, and that had a 2% cap. But I had to point out multiple differences between Connecticut and New York. In Connecticut, the primary source, almost all your money comes from property tax. In New York, only about half of the money comes from property tax for towns. The rest they get from the county sales tax. So big difference there. Also, the time frame for the New York implementation, inflation was low. So 2% wasn't that bad of a cap. Now 2% is a very bad. Doesn't work. So I pointed that out. It doesn't seem like it's moving forward. So I'm very happy about that. So like if you're going to do that, it should be a study, not a bill. There was a couple other items. Senate Bill 16, an act concerning revenue items to implement the governor's budget. This would impose a spending limit on towns. It's a spending so instead of a tax limit, a spending limit. You'd be capped at 2.5% or CPI, whatever's greater. So that's better. But the testimony I submitted saying like this only works if you limit new unfunded mandates, or if you keep on putting burdens on the towns to comply, and you don't, and now you have a spending cap. It's an issue. So I pointed that out, and I think this is a recent bill. Senate Bill 450, an act phasing in the exemption of motor vehicles from property tax increases and uniform property assessment rates. This would phase out motor vehicles. I don't think anyone enjoys paying car tax, but if we're constantly trying to hem in the towns, how they raise the revenue, how they can spend money, how they can how much they can raise taxes, I don't know how towns are supposed to do their job. So it's not there's been the one bill that I saw that would give towns more money, which was I guess sharing part of the Airbnb tax. I don't think that's moved forward, and so I don't. So that's concerning. It's like they're so quick to restrict your income and your spending, while at the same time telling you I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. So
don't forget the municipal mandates manual is 278 pages long.
Yeah.
And is amended every year with about 20 more pages.
Yep. Yep.
It's exciting reading.
Oh, it's so exciting.
Don't forget to survey your boundaries.
Yeah. So as always, if there's a bill that you would like me to write a letter on or attend a hearing for, please contact me. Happy to do that. It's always interesting trying to understand how watching the sausage being made. So yeah, it's not pretty sometimes. But yeah, there was a number of housing bills that moved forward. Some are good, some are less good, or not good. But yeah, I'll leave that for my my legislation update.
Okay.
So from this up.
Okay. Is there any other business before the COG today? Otherwise, I'll call for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Okay, thank you all. All right.
Thank you,
Those in
Mr.
favor?
Vice Chairman.
All right. Good. Nobody's
Thank
gonna
you.
oppose it.
Bye.
We are adjourned at 11 o'clock.